What if every time you thumbed the starter, you were quietly cutting months off your engine's life? No big bang, just tiny hits to the oil, battery and fuel system that slowly turn a smooth bike into a hard-starting, noisy machine. Most riders think, if it starts, it's fine, but those first few seconds decide how long your motorcycle stays healthy. We're breaking down the most common starting mistakes, what they really do inside the bike, and how to fix them with simple habits. Most people never think about this, yet they repeat it every ride. This routine matters more than most riders think, and the first mistake starts in the very first second after the engine fires. Mistake 1. Revving a cold engine. For a lot of riders, the ritual is the same. Start the bike, then snap the throttle a few times so it wakes up. It sounds good, it feels satisfying, and it's one of the worst things you can do to a cold motor. When the engine first starts, most of the oil is still sitting in the sump. The pump has only just begun to move it through the galleries. Cam lobes, cylinder walls, and bearings are relying on a thin leftover film from the last ride. If you rev hard right away, you're asking cold, barely lubricated parts to spin faster and carry more load than they should. That means extra friction and long-term, where you only notice later as more noise, lower compression, or higher oil use. You don't need to let the bike idle forever. Just give it 30-60 seconds of calm running, then ride off gently so it warms under light load instead of hard revs in the driveway. Fixing this one habit already protects the most expensive part of your bike, but the next mistake actually confuses the brain of the motorcycle. Mistake 2. Starting with throttle on a fuel-injected bike. On old carb bikes, a little twist of throttle sometimes helped. That habit stuck around, and plenty of riders still crack the throttle while pressing the starter on modern fuel-injected machines. On these bikes, that usually hurts more than it helps. A fuel-injected engine uses sensors and an ECU to decide exactly how much fuel and air it needs to start. When you open the throttle, you suddenly change the airflow and force the ECU to react mid-start. The result can be unstable idle, hard starts, or a bike that wants to stall in the first few seconds. Combine that with the cold oil problem from the first mistake, and you're now stressing the engine mechanically and upsetting the fueling at the same time. Over the long term, that can encourage carbon buildup, plug fouling, and rough running that riders blame on old age. The rule for fuel-injected bikes is simple. Keep your hand off the throttle while starting. Let the ECU do its job and only touch the throttle once the engine is running cleanly. If you want smoother starts, there's a much better place to focus your attention, and it's hiding in a sound most riders ignore. Mistake 3. Rushing the fuel pump prime. Turn the key on a modern motorcycle and you hear a soft whine for a second or two. That's the fuel pump priming and pressurizing the system. Many riders hit the starter the instant they turn the key. The bike usually starts, so they assume everything's fine. Inside the fuel system, it is. If you crank before the pump has finished building pressure, the injectors may be spraying with less pressure than they were designed for. That can mean lean starts, coughs, extra cranking, and the pump working harder than it has to. Those 1 or 2 seconds of priming also help purge tiny air bubbles from the fuel rail and stabilize pressure. You might not feel a difference on a single ride, but thousands of rushed starts add up to tired components and inconsistent behavior later. The correct habit is almost laughably easy. Key on, wait for the whine to stop, then hit the starter. That tiny pause is free insurance for your fuel system. But even if your fueling is perfect, many riders still make a mistake that can literally throw the bike forward when it starts. Mistake 4. Starting in gear without respecting the clutch. Picture starting your bike in a tight parking spot next to a wall or another vehicle. You think it's in neutral, hit the starter, and the bike jumps because it was still in gear and the clutch wasn't fully pulled. Even on modern bikes with safety switches on the clutch and side stand, starting in gear with a lazy or half-pulled lever puts extra load on the starter and gearbox. The starter now has to turn both the engine and part of the drivetrain. That extra resistance wears the starter, drags on the battery, and can create a harsh clunk through the transmission. The smarter habit is simple. Treat neutral and the clutch as non-negotiable. Before you start, actually look for the neutral light instead of guessing, if you really must. Start in gear, pull the clutch fully, and hold it until the engine is running steady. It takes almost no extra effort, but it protects the starter, gearbox, and your own balance. And once the bike is running safely, there's another place riders quietly damage things without realizing it: the way they react when it doesn't start right away. Mistake 5. Abusing the starter and battery. When a bike doesn't fire immediately, most people do the same thing: hold the starter longer or jab it over and over. It feels like trying harder, but what you're really doing is cooking the starter and draining the battery. Starter motors draw a huge amount of current. Hold that button for too long and the motor heats up from the inside. Do it again and again with no pause, and you can damage the windings, blow fuses, or leave the battery so weak it can't recover properly. Meanwhile, repeated cranking on a fuel-rich engine can wash fuel down the cylinder walls and make starting even harder. A better approach is controlled. Limit each crank to a few seconds, then stop. Give the system a short rest and use that pause to check the basics. Is the kill switch set correctly? Is the side stand down on a bike that won't start in gear? Are you sure there's fuel? Did you actually hear the pump prime? If the bike still refuses to start after a few smart attempts, it's no longer a starting technique issue, it's a fault that needs diagnosis. Forcing it won't fix anything. And that takes us to the last big mistake: ignoring the messages your motorcycle is already sending you. Mistake 6. Ignoring warnings and skipping checks. Modern bikes are very good at telling you when something's wrong. An oil light that stays on, a check engine symbol that won't clear, or a charging warning that glows at idle are not decorations. Starting and riding anyway can turn a cheap repair into a broken engine or a dead battery. A quick look at the dash and a 30-second walk around before you even press the starter can catch low oil, flat tires, loose chains, or leaks before they become emergencies. When you stop ignoring those signals, the way you start the bike changes from "I hope it's fine" to "I know it's ready." Those first seconds decide everything. Most riders don't ruin their motorcycle with one dramatic mistake. They do it slowly with small habits repeated every day: revving a cold engine, twisting the throttle on a fuel-injected bike, rushing the fuel pump, starting in gear carelessly, abusing the starter, and ignoring warnings and basic checks. The good news is that every one of these mistakes is easy to fix. Give the engine a moment to build oil pressure, let the pump prime, start with a closed throttle, respect neutral and the clutch, use short, smart cranking attempts, watch your dashboard and your bike's condition like it actually matters. Small changes in habit there pay off more than any shiny accessory. If you start your motorcycle like you plan to keep it for a long time, those first few seconds of every ride stop being a hidden danger and turn into a quiet investment in years of smooth, reliable riding.